Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, a new contract in the Canadiens front office and a wild game in Smashville.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1025 of Locked On Canadiens, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week. And as always, thank you for making us your first listen wherever you get your daily podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you are watching on youtube.com. And speaking of YouTube, make sure you are subscribed. Tell your friends. Friday after the trade deadline, we will be doing a live show for about an hour between roughly the end of the frenzy there and after dinner time and before the Rocket game at 7 p.m. We'll be there for about an hour or so. We're going to do a live show. We'll take questions, talk about the deadline and everything. So make sure you're subscribed at Locked On Canadiens. And if you've never listened to the show, you're probably wondering who the hell I am. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Mallon. I'm joined, as always, by the active stick, Laura Saba. And we want to apologize. Technical difficulties on Wednesday night prevented us from being able to get you a brand new episode right after the Predators game. And it kind of worked out in our favor, Laura, because a lot has happened from the time that game ended and the time we were sitting down to record this on Wednesday evening.
Yes, and it was really funny too, is because you were, early in the game, you said you were having trouble with your internet, and then the closer it got to the end of the game, I also got technical issues, so we decided to wait a day, and it just turned out to be fortuitous. And I'm sure you guys are all going to join us 6 p.m. Eastern on Friday, and we will go over the frenzy a little bit more, but we will talk about it today because Wednesday turned out to be the most eventful day so far, and it doesn't necessarily bode well for Friday, but a lot of moving pieces are going on. But I think the bigger news is, Scott, you and I were discussing something, and then the Canadiens went ahead and did it.
Yes, and all credit to Laura, who was thinking about this, is that we talked about the Rocket needing structure and needing some things going into next season to, really kind of get to that next level that we talked about in the Monday episode. And they went out and did that today. So the Canadiens hired a new GM for the Laval Rocket. They extended current assistant general manager John Sedgwick, who handles, I believe, a lot of the cap-related shenanigans, which is impressive in its own right. That is, in fact, a full-time job on its own. And also named him general manager of the Laval Rocket with that extension. And dropping to my knees in a Tops in Lewiston, New York, that this was absolutely what the Rocket needed. And Laura, full credit to her, because she had that thought. We have talked about it a lot. It is so good to see this actually done now, because you need someone kind of controlling that, and it takes something else off of the plate of Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon. People in the know that Sedgwick has kind of been doing this unofficially, but with this under his purview now, it is more Kent, Jeff, I got this. If we need to discuss player movement, we can do that. It helps kind of stabilize that 3-tier system all the way down to the ECHL, and we'll hopefully see the dividends coming off of that.
So one of the things was that we were talking about this, and I believe it was even the Monday episode. It was as recently as the Monday episode where we were talking about, Kent Hughes has been quite quiet on the Laval front. He's been quiet overall this season. He hasn't put a lot of face time in with the media, which is never a problem, right? Like, that's not necessarily a requirement for the GM when things aren't really happening. It's not like he's running away when there's a scandal or anything like that. But what we thought was, he's been quite quiet on the Laval front too, and we're wondering, like, what are the plans there? And I do think that, and I do believe that this is a fantastic move. It is the right move. I do think that having a dedicated GM for your AHL team, if you want your AHL team to literally be the pipeline for a contending NHL team, if you want your AHL team to teach your young stars playoff experience, professional hockey experience, all of that kind of stuff, you do really you have to delegate it as its own separate entity, connected to you, but separate entity. It's a great thing that it is in Laval. Like when they brought it over to, just up the metro, just across the bridge, it changed a lot of things because the prospects that were playing in the AHL could live in Montreal, could, socialize with their teammates at the NHL level, and it was easy for calling up and all of that. Logistically, it was a great idea. They've got a great arena. It's really fun. It's really accessible. It's helped get a lot of, butts and seats, for lack of a better term. But at the same time, we've talked a lot about how sometimes, like when there's injuries that come up, like NHL grabs from the AHL level, but what's really going on at the AHL level is somebody there to kind of readjust, realign. It's sometimes falling all on the coach, and it's not necessarily always the right idea, right? And so like this really, really allows there to be somebody to be responsible for them, giving him that mandate. Now that it's his official mandate, it will give him a little bit more autonomy with the decision making, not necessarily against what Jeff Gorton or Kent Hughes want, but also just the ability to be a bit stronger, a bit more bold, a bit more outside the box, and to bring the ideas to the table, right? And by all accounts, like one of the big things that has happened today is in all my group chats, everybody's saying like this guy is a very deserving guy. He's somebody with integrity. He's somebody who is really kind, who's really, really sharp. He's really, really smart. As we talked about, he has handled a lot of the cap stuff lately. And he is one of the people that survived, right? The regime change. So this is somebody who I truly think is the right person for this job. Now we'll see how it goes. And as Scott said, he's unofficially been doing this for a while, but this legitimizes his like anything that he has to say, all the decision making, maybe, like we talked about how there was probably not a great chance that JF Houle is going to be back next year. So somebody to like be dedicated to that coaching search, to like, so that it's not up to Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton alone. And it's like, at the senior level, you really want to be able to delegate to managers at the lower level to kind of just make sure everything's running smoothly, keep you apprised of anything you need to know, and also to pick up not the slack, not to pick up the slack, to pick up the pieces when you're calling up a significant number of players due to injury at the NHL level. Like, I just think this is a fantastic move.
And the thing is that people have asked, like, what does this mean for JF Houle? And to be quite honest, I don't know with
Yes.
that. I think JF Houle is still coaching for an extension for the rest of the season. The Rocket lost 3-2 in overtime tonight, which just banged my head against a wall about that. Another day, Sedgwick was one of the guys who was under Bergevin's regime when they brought Jean-Francois Houle in after Joel Bouchard was not extended with the Canadiens here. So he's tied to him. I think a lot of it depends on how does the rest of the season go. Are the Canadiens brass, and now John Sedgwick, he was already, part kind of Houle's boss in this, but now he is officially, in that role. Can you impress them down the stretch with what you do here? We're anticipating Reinbacher, we're anticipating Engstrom, potentially a Luke Tuck, Christ, I forgot his name. Lane Hudson. Wow, that's great for me here.
Scott, you have a jersey coming with his name on it.
It's been a long day, okay? And then the other guys from the OHL and the CHL coming in. Can you make the most of it down the stretch? If you're not going to make the playoffs, can you make it worthwhile? Can you showcase why you should be back next year? If they're not going to make the playoffs, send guys who can help the Habs at the end of the season up then and play younger guys here if you need to. And I'm not opposed to that. Guys like Cedric Guindon are going to be, available to come in. You're going to have Luke Tuck, Rhett Pitlick, potentially a guy like Luke Mittelstadt, who was drafted as an overager. The options are there for things, and I'm curious to see what they do down the stretch. But this is part of the reason why I think Sedgwick is there now, is that there's going to be a lot of young bodies. We know that injuries have decimated the lower two levels here in the ECHL and the AHL. Giving one guy more tools that he needs to sort that out helps everybody top to bottom. if the base of your thing there, the ECHL is in order and everything's stable there, and the AHL is stable, then all that stability works its way up to the NHL, where it, not that the other leagues don't matter, matters the most, is the most crucial. Since I've started covering the AHL, I have been begging and pleading for a regular AHL GM. Mark Bergevin did it for a while. The results kind of speak for themselves. Once he got a little more hands off, it got a little bit different. But we have a lot to go over. We do want to recap that game in Nashville because it is very important. We'll talk a little bit about the game upcoming in Carolina, and that's all coming up next. But first, no matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness, and you should give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. And if you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. It is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay at all. I went through the job search thing last year, continually looking for a new job, a new career, and Indeed was so easy that I could upload my resume, and within a day, I had, people reaching out saying, "You fit what we are looking for. Let's set up a meeting." And that can work just as well for you, because Indeed makes it easy to hire great talent, because according to ComScore, Indeed is the #1 job site in the world. So start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Offer valid through March 31st. That's Indeed.com/locked on to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. One more time, Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. And remember, when you need to hire, you need Indeed. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. And remember, Friday, we'll tweet out the time, but I think we're going to say about 6 p.m., give or take, so we can let those final few trades trickle in here live on the Locked On Canadiens YouTube channel. Laura, myself, Ian Boisvert, good times, memes, making fun of the Senators. Probably, I imagine that'll be the case. But so I feel really bad that we didn't get an episode up last night, because so much happened in that game that we could have made an entire episode just around that game there. But to distill things down a little bit, the Habs played well, went behind, went down 2, and then Josh Anderson got his ass kicked by Luke Schenn, and then the Canadiens won a hockey game that I don't know if they didn't have any business winning it, but it was, as I put it on Twitter, the dumbest and funniest win I think I've seen from the Canadiens this season, in that it wasn't undeserved. It's just the way we got to the final part of it was so ridiculous that I don't really have words for it. The Habs tied it up. Joshua Waugh gave them the lead Ryan O'Reilly gave the Predators a lead again. Joshua Waugh pickpockets Roman Josi, a very good defenseman, scores to make it 3-3. And I'm going, you know what? Great. And then late in the game, with about 2 minutes or so left, Michael McCarron is in front of the net. A shot comes in. He is holding his stick up in front of the net. It very clearly hits something at face level, which shoulder height is the only height you're allowed to high stick anything and play it. Drops in front of McCarron. He sweeps it into the goal while Jake Allen is standing there confused. On the replay, it clearly shows the puck hitting McCarron's stick, and he's 6'7". He is the biggest man on the ice, and it took a couple of minutes for them to figure out that, oh, that hit a stick, that's no goal. And we went to overtime, where Nick Suzuki heard everybody talking, and Nick Suzuki put some stank on the overtime winner. Cole Caulfield circled back, attacked kind of downhill, fed one to Suzuki along the goal line, and just absolutely blistered one from no angle by UC Saros in somehow only the second most improbable goal in that entire game. Laura, do you want to tell everyone what happened with David Savard, or do you want me to delve into the ridiculousness of what happened.
I would like you to delve into it, but before that, I do want to make a point though. I wanted to talk a little bit about Cole Caulfield because I mean, I feel it too, like as podcasters too, like our conversation is usually centered around Suzuki and Slavkovsky because Slavkovsky's had such a great breakout season. But the one thing with Cole Caulfield, even though, yes, he has been relatively quiet, and we've talked a little bit about that, about like how the NHL players, he's kind of having to adjust because, they've been able to kind of corner him a little bit and he's less effective than we think normally. But if you look at the underlying numbers, it's still there. But if you look at individual plays like that, not necessarily just in overtime, sometimes on the power play, sometimes on the offense, like he's still doing the right things and making the right moves. The fact that he's quiet to me doesn't necessarily have me concerned. And I don't even think he's that quiet. I think it's just that the other two were so in our faces about how great they are right now. And Cole Caulfield feels a bit more subdued. And we talked about it here on this podcast. I talked about it with Andrew Berkshire. It could be a little bit residual left from the injury, him coming back and trying to readjust from that. But I also think the NHL is kind of used to him now after this many seasons. They work really hard to defend against him, right? Like the matching in the opponent's dressing room is always taking him into consideration. But at the same time, he's still doing the right things. And he's still managing, particularly with teams with a little bit less depth, he's still managing to take the attention away and allowing Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield to make those plays, to score those goals, to be able to carry those plays. So I just wanted to shout Cole Caulfield out. But let's get back to David Savard and ridiculousness. I love ridiculousness. I used to call it ridiculosity.
I do want to point out that, for everyone who's like, oh, is Caulfield, all right. He has 31 assists on the season now, which is not what I expected from him. He's just shy of 20 goals. I'm not worried about Cole Caulfield. Him developing more of a playmaking skill set is great. And Nick Suzuki's overtime winning goal, by the way, was the 100th of his career, which pretty great milestone. Poor Gord Miller had to come back to Twitter after deleting it to apologize for calling him Ryan Suzuki, which was very funny in the moment. But so let me set the stage here. The Predators are up 2-0. The Canadiens really haven't had much of anything. Josh Anderson just got out of the box after getting his ass kicked, and Jake Evans sets up Brendan Gallagher for a one-timer from the slot. It is 2-1. Canadiens have a little bit of life in them. They're showing a little bit of life, and I'm not saying that Anderson's fight did that, but I'm not saying that as well. Off the face-off, it is one back, Nick Suzuki to Caulfield. Caulfield pushes it back to David Savard at center ice. This is the opening face-off directly after Brendan Gallagher's goal. Savard skates towards that center line and goes to dump the puck in like they often do. UC Saros has transitioned himself behind the net to collect it. Savard had ramped it along the glass and boards coming in, and then it hits a stanchion, which sometimes it does, and sometimes it bounces in a weird direction back into the slot, kind of just dies, bounces in a weird direction. This one bounced straight 90-degree angle. Straight into the net UC Saros was just in. Saros is standing behind the net, and Dmitry Filipovich has a great screen cap of the official pointing at the goal and UC Saros just standing behind the net looking utterly befuddled. It is the funniest thing I've ever seen because I still do not understand how it happened. And I want to look up, there was a tweet last night that was that kind of put it all in perspective about why this is so absolutely funny here. Where is that? From Evolving Hockey. David Savard's goal is the lowest expected goal value to become a goal in this NHL season at 0.0024%. Previously, it was on January 4th when the Nashville's Michael McCarron scored from the neutral zone with a value of 0.0039. Absolutely stunning. It is the dumbest possible thing. And all I can think is some GM's going to look at that and go, wow, that's a guy I want on my team. I should trade a first-round pick for David Savard. And Kent Hughes is going to go, yes, you should definitely trade a first-round pick for David Savard.
Let's go, Edmonton.
Oh God, yeah. It's it's a little bit of ridiculousness. Then of course Joshua Watt tied it up again after that when like I said, he pickpocketed Roman Yossi, looked off Luke Shen and just snapped one by UC Saros. It was a phenomenally fun game. And of course, up next is Carolina. The Canadiens do not have a fourth line center currently. Colin White is on IR for at least the next week. And I do not think the Canadiens want to play Raphael Harvey-Pinard and Tanner Pearson as their fourth line center going into things here. I have not seen a recall tonight from anything, and the team is in Carolina. They may put Michael Pezzetta back in the lineup because he played a little bit of center in junior. But going into the Carolina game, I'm not expecting great things because the Canadiens have never played well against Carolina. But it is the last game before the trade deadline, and we're going to see who can shine in this. We know Samuel Montembeault is starting. Jake Allen had a good start, got the win against Nashville there. So this is the last chance saloon for a lot of these players. If you're looking to boost your value, come out swinging against Carolina. Trust me, the Habs are going to need it.
What about if you don't want out?
Shoot the puck in your own net. I don't know. Throw it in your own net if you're a former Canadiens general manager. We'll see on that. And again, we will have plenty of trade deadline things. But speaking of the trade deadline, we have so many things to go over right now and how they impact the Canadiens because Wednesday was insane. It was the longest lunch break I've ever taken trying to keep up with the news. And we will get into all of that coming up next. But first, eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. It is sometimes so hard in the morning when you're on the go for lunch if you're working from home, you're coming home late from dinner. It is so hard to get everything that you need to have the time. Well, guess what? With Factor, there's over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and keto-friendly options. And there's more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. They are 2-minute meals, restaurant quality, that are ready to heat and eat whenever you are. And you can discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, whether it be breakfast, midday bites, and more. There's no prep, no mess. Factor meals are so easy to do that even I can do them, and I am not a genius chef. And they are so flexible to your schedule. If you don't have time, throw one in, forget about it, and you've got a good, healthy meal ready to go. And right now, you can sign up and save because we've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. And today's show is also brought to you by the folks at Robinhood. Did you know that if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on your 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Some subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to our IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standings. Robinhood Financial, LLC, member SPIC, is a registered broker-dealer. So, if you liked me reading that ad read at 30 times speed, which was just me talking on caffeine, I can try and do the same, I think, for how Wednesday's trade deadline nonsense has gone. I don't even know where to start at this point, but it seems like I guess we're going to start in Anaheim. Adam Henrique to the Edmonton Oilers with Sam Carrick for a first-round pick and a conditional fourth coming back. Noah Hannafin is or is not a Vegas Golden Knight at this point. He's been traded, but they need a third-party broker, and they haven't found one yet. So that trade is in limbo right now. You have, oh, wow, I'm forgetting a whole bunch of things in this already. Bowen Byram. Tarasenko was hilariously traded for pocket lint to the Florida Panthers from Ottawa. Ottawa got a third and a conditional fourth, I believe.
For Vladimir Tarasenko. Ottawa, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they got less for him than the Canadians got for I almost called him Sean. No, he is Sean Monahan. I'm trying to get the trade tracker up here because so many things have happened. So that was that. Vegas Golden Knights the previous night acquired Anthony Mantha for a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick in the 2026 NHL draft. The New York Rangers have acquired Alex Wenberg from the Seattle Kraken for a second-round pick and a conditional fourth-round pick. Oh,
but I like Alex Wenberg.
Yeah, well, now he's a Ranger and we have to hate him because that's who we are. Colorado acquires Sean Walker and a fifth-round pick from the Flyers for forward Ryan Johansson and a conditional first-round pick in the 2025 NHL draft. The Flyers then immediately put Ryan Johansson on waivers to send him to Lehigh Valley, which maybe they're hoping someone claims him, maybe not. And then I think the big one here is in the middle of Colorado acquiring Sean Walker is they sent Bowen Byram to the Buffalo Sabres 1-for-1 for Casey Middlestat because Lord knows Nathan McKinnon needed a second-line center behind them. Middlestat's had a pretty good season. And if you're wondering where I'm going with all of this, we're hearing Toffoli rumors, depending on who you ask on Twitter. The Noah Hannafin trade is, like we said, we don't have an answer on that at this point. There's a third-party broker. They're still working everything out. As far as I can tell, there's a prospect defenseman and a first going to Calgary in this trade. But if everyone wants to know why we're talking about this now, the market for David Savard has potentially never been hotter at this point. A lot of the top defensemen Chris Tanev has been traded. Sean Walker has been traded. Ilya Lyubushkin, not a top target, but one of those targets, has been traded. Savard looks very, very appealing now for teams who miss the boat on things. Jacob Chikrin is potentially waffling about out there. We're not sure what Ottawa's doing, but not our problem there. And there's nothing on goalies yet. Everyone is waiting on Jacob Markstrom, and Calgary seems pretty content to hold on to him at this point, which then do you go for Caden Primo or Jake Allen? And probably in the 5 minutes since I've last looked at Twitter while we were doing this, I imagine someone has been traded. Laura, what's your feeling as we head in? Because I feel like Thursday is going to have hey, cool. We have the Hannafin trade. The return on Noah Hannafin is Danil Miromanov, a first-round pick, and a third that becomes a second if Vegas wins a single round in the playoffs.
So was there a third team that brokered that?
Philadelphia, okay, according to Darren Dreger. Calling away Vegas acquires Hannafin, first-round pick, blah, blah, blah. A second double salary retention hearing. Philadelphia is the broker in that trade. So I'm very curious what piece of that is going to Philadelphia to broker that or what pieces are going there. But overall, man,
what a day. You know, it's trade deadline season when I'm waving a pen around, even though I'm not really writing anything.
it looks fancy, so it's fine. Like it was a very busy lunch that I sat down, in a parking lot after leaving one account, checked in on the news, went into another account, checked the news, sat down to have lunch, and then just all hell broke loose for like a 30-minute span. All I wanted to do was eat my chicken sandwich in peace, and every team is like, what if we just trade everybody right now?
So this is not a brag. It's just I have an Apple Watch, and I was working really hard today. Some stuff came up at work, so I couldn't really pay attention to anything but that. But literally for like an hour and a half from all of the group chats, it was just like buzzing the whole time. So when I went back to check my messages, in one of them, there was 108 messages because so much stuff had happened. And so that's how that day has been. And it took me a while to just even read through that. It was like, I was so thankful that we were recording after the Rocket game because I needed some time to process everything.
The biggest thing out of all this is great for the Canadiens because now teams are going to plan B and C. And yeah, maybe it's not great, but we know Kent Hughes, when he sets his price, he waits for it. And sooner or later, people meet that price. If you are a team who missed out on Tarasenko, might miss out on Buchnevich, you missed out on Tanev or Sean Walker, not that Sean Walker is the same type of player, you're going to be going to a team that has tradable assets that you know is looking for buyers, but is listening, not actively shopping. And I'm not saying Friday is going to be a busy day for the Montreal Canadiens. I actually anticipate still kind of the opposite. I think one of the goalies will get dealt. I still think David Savard's going in the offseason. And I think a guy like Jesse Ylönen or Michael Pezzetta is going to get traded somewhere. Just small little things. But I'm willing to bet the Canadiens will use their retention slot on something and be part of a deal, whether it is a broker or, on one of those big contracts. Who knows? But everything today is just, this is good news if you're a Canadiens fan, because the market is now opening up for people to go and look at, Kent Hughes' shop of needful things. Sure, David Savard has a Stanley Cup ring and he scored a funny goal, but also he's slow and might not be what you think he is. Yeah, Jake Allen won a Stanley Cup and he's a pretty good 1B. He can't seal his post to save his life. Yes, this is a Stephen King allegory to end this show here. Laura, do you have any parting thoughts before we say goodbye to our listeners today?
No, we should say goodbye and post this episode ASAP just in case things happen and things change. So that's my thing. I'm very excited for tomorrow. Potentially nothing would happen. But then on Friday, I'm even more excited because we get to hang out with all of you for an hour.
Live show, 6 p.m. on Friday. Subscribe, tell all your friends, grab your favorite frosty beverage and come join us. I will have the windows open. There will be a dog. There will be many jokes and good times. So make sure you're subscribed. Also, tomorrow is our mailbag episode going up after the Carolina game. We will have your recap. We will have your mailbag as well. So please tweet us at LO_Canadiens, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Send us whatever is on your brain. We know there's probably a lot at this point, and we will get to it before the trade deadline show comes around. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. You can follow me at Scott Matla. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.